Real quick, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Greenlight.ai. We all know how important compliance is, and Greenlight.ai is the leader for compliance and EOR services, especially for talent platforms. You're going to hear about them later, but thank you to Greenlight. All right, Taylor. Well, listen, we last time we talked was a year and a half ago. Listeners, I thought it was like 6 months ago. So I was expecting to be like, Taylor, what's changed, man? Nothing really, right? And it's no, a year and a half ago. Um, when we met, I was like, this was when you had just started, right? I think it was within like your first month of being in business. And so I think I told you, I was like, hey man, yeah, let's reconnect, and let's reconnect when you want. And I was kind of like, I met with like 10 people like you usually in this space, right? And then I'm like, a year later, you don't see them. But you're the exact opposite, right? So Fractional Jobs has really taken off. It seems to be definitely one of the leaders in actually connecting companies to fractional individuals, not just, a community or events. And I think one of the most fascinating parts between us, Taylor, is like this industry. We're going to like talk about what the hell is this industry, right? But for me, it's really cool to see kind of the next wave of founders and entrepreneurs in this space. I just got off of a webinar with like the old talent world and like procurement and HR folks, and it's always a funny, like, I like kind of piss them off, but then like if like two of them will be like, oh yeah, that's what the future looks like. But I don't think you'll get that mad at me for some of the stuff I say, so it'll be fun. But Taylor, let's start, like, how would you describe yourself, and then let's get into how did you get into a year and a half ago starting Fractional Jobs.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And just I want to also note that when I first launched Fractional Jobs a year and a half ago, you were the very first person that DM'd me on LinkedIn cold. I didn't even know who you were. You probably didn't know who I was, and we jumped on a call. And I remember on that call, I was thinking to myself, this guy does not think I'm going to be around in a year or two. But like that was a totally fair. Like
Sorry.
you meet people like me all the time that launch these new ventures, right? And so like I didn't fault you for it in the slightest bit, but I was like, at some point in time, we're going to reconnect, and I'm going to be making progress, and here we are. So I'm very happy about
I
that.
knew we would grab a beer. The question was, is it a beer talking about the current business, or a beer being like, I told you the space sucks?
Listen, I have learned so much. I also like my background is not in HR. Like my background's in product, software tech. That's my bread and butter. Prof tech actually was like one of the specialties that I was in.
Yeah.
But definitely not HR. Definitely not HR tech. So I am kind of a newbie. And to your earlier point about like the old guard and the new guard, yeah, I guess for better or worse, like I'm coming in with a lot of naivete and hopefully a little bit of fresh perspective as well.
And also, one of the cool things was, as part of that naivete, is that I think Fractional has actually been able to be built on its own without having to be lumped into the freelance side. And so,
Mm,
like, not to put the whatever that saying is, cart for the horse, or whatever, but we call it the flexible talent industry
yeah,
because we would say gig, freelance, fractional, and increasingly AI digital workers.
yeah.
And what's been cool about the fractional side of this is it seems to be that you've been able to kind of be in your own lane. And so a lot of things that would not have worked if it were a traditional freelance talent platform. And I think I told you on our first call, I was like, take everything I say with a massive grain of salt, because I'm the old man on the porch that
Mm,
like is just really tired. And I'm going to tell you a bunch of things that I've seen, but that doesn't mean it won't work. Right. So
yeah.
I remember now being like, like, is it really just a marketplace? Is it
Mm,
really just a job board?
right.
And I think you're really good at product. So you intentionally were like, well, I'm not going to over engineer this before I have data.
Totally
Right?
true. Yeah. No, 100%. And when I first launched it, it was purely just a job board, like a self-service, like in the same way that you and I think of any job board today.
Yeah.
It's pivoted, quite a bit since then. I've iterated a lot on it. It's in some ways it looks like a job board, although behind the scenes it's really not. But yeah, you're totally right. I'm constantly I'm learning a lot, and I'm changing a lot, and yeah, it's been
And
interesting.
you're not, not to, you're not venture backed, right? So you
It's
haven't.
correct. Yeah.
Yes, that's huge, and you're an
It's
actual
huge.
product person. So if it was, I mean, I was just talking about this with if it was 5 years ago, Taylor, you probably would have already had to have had either had a technical co-founder or built up a technical team. But nowadays, you don't need to, right? You can
Yeah.
get into what exactly you've built.
Yeah. It's so 100%. I'm bootstrapping the company. My previous company was a venture-backed startup. I think there's absolutely a time and a place to do that. I think it makes a lot of sense in some contexts. I think it increasingly actually doesn't make sense for a lot of businesses. And from the start, I felt like this was a bootstrappable business, and I'm so happy for that decision. Pros and cons, right? So I built a very lean team. I have like 4 or 5 folks that are working for me right now, and the engineering work that we've done has been very much just like very iterative, very as needed, and virtually all internal to our own team. So like building tooling for like my recruiters to like move much quicker, right? It's actually interesting. It's like, and my background's in product, right? So my bread and butter is building software. But when I first launched Fractional Jobs, the intention was self-service software, and I very quickly learned that that was not a great solution, at least today, for the fractional market for a couple of reasons. Like, on the fractional, we're talking about like fractional executives, like C-suite, a lot of C-suite executives, a lot of folks that are very good at what they do, senior in their career, and I wanted to create an experience for them that felt pretty white glove. And then the same for the company side, like for the white glove also, but for different reasons. For companies, fractional is new, and you know they it's scary, frankly. It's like, what is this? What is, I hear about this, what's going on? And like the idea of a totally self-service product
Yeah.
um felt like it was missing the mark a bit. And so I wanted to create more of a white glove service to help companies understand what fractional is, what the benefits are, what fractional hiring looks like successfully, and then kind of handhold them through the process.
Yeah.
And so the self-service job board has basically pivoted into, I don't even know what the word is anymore. I'm open to your suggestions. It's more of a marketplace now, but like it's one where I'm like being very handholdy to both the fractionals and to the companies, and so it feels to them very much like a service. Or like to companies, it's going to feel like a recruiting service. But on we've built a lot of tooling, and we have a lot more to build. But we have built and are building a lot of tooling that is making it productized, or more and more productized internally for us, while still, and this is a key point for me, still making it feel as much of a service as possible to the people that are using it, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. So the way I would describe it is you've built a curated stage with specialized expertise in the back end and generic staffing experience on the front end.
Yes.
Now, if you were to go talk with investors and be like, "Hey, look, like it's a service," they'd say, "Hey, look, pound sand," right? So
Oh my
like, this
God,
is
yes.
also part of like what you're having to fight with is the fact that okay, like this norm of like service is sexy from a
Yeah.
talent perspective. Now, I wonder, like, so, and that totally not surprised to hear that at all, and that is trending towards what the best talent platforms do. I think this is why we use the word talent platform because usually if that platform element, it is kind of assumed that there's a service layer in it, whereas
Hmm.
marketplace, right? It's assumed it's just like
Mm.
an auction bidding system, like from a product
Yeah.
perspective, right? It's like an auction bidding system. Maybe there's shortlisting, but not really. Whereas platform, I kind of think of more as like a sales floors, where it's like, okay, like there's a platform and there's deployment, the deployment processes, and your recruiters fit more along that like deployment consultant
Yeah. I
more.
like that, actually. I like that so much that I think I'm going to start calling it a talent platform. I like that because you're right. Like marketplace is not exactly the right word. It makes you think too much of Upwork and
Yeah,
TopTal, which from the experience perspective, this is not that.
exactly.
So yeah, great.
And what about so let's kind of get like two angles. One is the type of work that you're seeing get done,
Yeah.
meaning is this day rates, hourly rates?
Hmm.
Is this, purely outcome based, monthly retainers, whatever? Then also what kind of work? So is this strategy? Is this all CMOs? And then even I forgot the third one I was going to say, but I think those two are good enough. Like,
Yeah.
tell us about the work that's getting done on platform.
So let's talk compensation first.
Okay.
In the fractional world, it is most common to pay on a monthly retainer,
Hmm.
although an hourly rate is not at all uncommon either. And actually, in some cases, I even recommend it.
Yeah.
The key, though, is that, and this is inherent to the fractional model, is that it's meant to be ongoing and indefinite in nature, right? It's not You're not hiring a fractional for a 2 week sprint. Um, you're hiring someone to be part of the team indefinitely in the same way that you would hire a full-time person to be part of your team indefinitely. It just so happens that this person is working part-time, aka fractionally. And so the monthly retainer concept, I think, lends itself really well towards both just like logistically, like how to compensate the person, but then
Yeah.
also the implication of a monthly retainer is that it is more of an ongoing relationship. And then the hourly rate is somewhat similar. It's just frankly an sometimes easier to wrap your head around type model, and so that's not uncommon as well. It's not typical to do fixed projects. With respect to the day rate, it's funny you mentioned that. I find that that's more of a geographic thing. Like in the UK and in Europe, they love their day rates, and in the US, it's literally like not even. I've never even heard of someone from the US talking about day rates.
Yeah.
It's very, very popular in the UK. We're working on a CFO role for in the UK right now, and so we all talk about day rates. But yeah, so that's that. Um, and then happy to shift to the second question, or unless you wanted to dive into more
Yeah,
detail on
no,
the first.
so it hits on my third thing that I was going to ask was on the re-engagement, meaning like this is one of the plagues of a marketplace is that, and remember, hopefully, I really hope you're not you never read this book because it's such a like too academic thing. But remember that book? Was it called Platform Revolution?
I don't. It does not sound familiar, so I did not read it.
Okay, good, good. So, but basically what it was talking about was it was like the mechanics of a marketplace and the science of a marketplace. And like
Hmm.
I read this as early as 2016 because I built my first, talent marketplace in 2015. And basically what it was talking about was it was like, hey, your goal is to maximize the liquidity. And the liquidity is measured by the amount of transactions. Now, in a world like Uber, Airbnb, like typical marketplaces, that makes sense. But in your world, success actually looks like one transaction for the rest of your life because I want to work with the same people that I like over and
Mm.
over and over. I just want to go up and down,
Mm.
not yes and no, right? So the re-engagement was going to be my third thing.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, but let's get into the type of work.
Yeah.
And if we can, like as granular too, is like, is this working in large company, mid company, small company? Are there certain industries that are grabbing this and love this, certain skills? Yeah, what about the type of work?
So let's dissect it in a few. Let's talk about type in terms of like function area, and then we can talk about type in terms of like strategy versus execution and kind of that whole spectrum as well. And then we can go into other things as well. So function areas, the most popular roles that companies are hiring fractional for are going to be fractional finance leadership, like fractional CFOs, for example, fractional marketing leadership, aka fractional CMOs, fractional directors of marketing,
Yeah.
fractional head of marketing, and then fractional engineering leadership. So that's going to be your fractional CTOs, your fractional CISOs, your fractional staff engineers, even um, tech leads, that kind of thing as well. Um, Interestingly, though, on the supply side of the marketplace, so on the the talent side, those that are looking for work, the most popular function areas are marketing, probably operations and product. So there's actually a really interesting mismatch there, which is interesting. Like finance is the most in demand from companies, but it is not the most populous in terms of like the amount of fractionals doing
Yeah.
fractional finance work. In terms of strategy versus execution, this is a really interesting one that I have developed some pretty strong thoughts on, and like it's also, I mean, I think it's probably a little bit dependent on the industry. Like, so like fractional jobs tends to lean more tech industry. So a lot of tech startups are using us, for example, and although I mean, also small businesses, professional services firms, even some nonprofits as well, but it does lean a bit more tech. And so
Yeah.
what I found is that most founders, when they're looking to hire even a fractional CTO, like even a C-suite, they always tell me, I want a doer. I don't want a talking head. I don't want someone managerial only. I want someone who can set the strategy, but is also capable of at least doing some of the execution work when needed. And so, like for fractional CTOs, it's like we want a CTO that is capable of coding, or for marketing, we want a CMO, we want a fractional head of marketing that can write copy, when needed.
Yeah.
Um, and that's yeah, I think that's like I think also like when we think about the next 5, 10, 15 years of how like the flexible workforce is going to develop over time, and the intersection of like the workforce plus AI, I think more and more we're going to see a need for or a desire for someone that it has the strategic brain, but can do the execution work. Leveraging AI is needed, fine, but like is also responsible for the execution work as opposed to needing to build out, these massive teams of full-time employees underneath them.
Hey everyone, real quick, I want to talk about the risk that is involved with an independent workforce. No matter where you are, whether it's the US, whether it's Brazil, whether it's the EU, whether it's London, there is risk in how you classify and how you work with individuals. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as just paying someone. The classification, the actual collaboration, the contracts, the payments, everything is intertwined and must be connected in a way that doesn't get you in trouble with the tax authorities, regulatory authorities, and even potentially class action lawsuits. There are numerous examples of this. Just search classification lawsuit and you'll get plenty. Which is why today's sponsor, Greenlight.ai, is the modern EUR, modern compliance solution for the modern workforce. There's 4 things that we want to call out when hiring an independent worker that you need. And that is you need to onboard, you need to classify, you need to send payments, and you need to manage this global workforce. It's more than just one person, and Greenlight has all of that covered. All right, I want you to head over to greenlight.ai and tell them Human Cloud sent you.
I forget. I think it was in Drusen's podcast I was listening to yesterday where they said it's the era of the idea guy, meaning that like
Totally.
now, right, totally. But in the same way, like there's nothing worse than the idea guy, and in a corporate setting, that is what most managers are incented for, right? So
Yeah.
like, I'll never forget. Like that was my biggest experience going from startups into corporate. Was startups? It was like everyone had to eat what they kill, had to
Yeah.
actually build something themselves, right? Everyone from the CEO down, everyone. But then in corporate, it was like, wait, you're incented to just sit in that seat and delegate,
Right.
and like you're proud of that. And right, it was just such a like,
Yeah.
oh my god. I remember I said something. Mind you, like I worked at Microsoft, right? So like this should have worked, but I was like, isn't code king? And they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, that person built it, so shouldn't they be reporting and like giving like the advice on what to do next? And you would have thought I basically told them all to go fuck themselves, right?
Yeah.
Like how insulting that was. And so there's definitely this mismatch of the idea guys slash managers who unfortunately they've been incented for 20 plus years to just delegate, not actually
Yeah.
do something themselves. Now I'm going to ask you a really quick question that's simple. Your business model, is it a
Yeah.
percentage take? Is it a subscription fee? What? And I'm sure like, and then it's not really an important question, to be
I
honest.
think it's actually a very interesting question. It's not a short answer, but I'll give you a quick short answer. But there's
Yeah.
actually a whole conversation we can have about this because it's one of the things I'm most proud of
Yeah.
about the entire year and a half that I've been iterating on this business. Short answer: we charge companies a flat referral fee if they hire a candidate that we recommend to them.
Oh my God.
Um,
Yes. Tell me more. Okay. I'm so glad I asked this question now and this early. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, so going a little more detail, like when the company first started, it was a job post fee model, right? You buy a job post, that didn't work. I trashed that super quickly. I did a lot of research on like every marketplace and how they make their money and like what works, what doesn't work, and like I was getting so much advice left, right, and center about taking a percentage fee. So doing like, I place a fractional, then I subcontract, and then I take a 20% markup. It's what virtually, it's what the Upworks, the top did. It's what they all do.
Yeah.
To be honest, personally, I hated it. I hated the idea that I was a fractional head of product for a year. Basically, here's my thinking. It's like I was a fractional head of product for a year. I could find my own clients. I did. So, I did so. I don't need to give up 20% of my income, and so what that means is that if you're and I choose my words carefully here. I think there's a lot of benefit to building marketplaces that take a percentage. However,
Yeah.
there is some incentive for the best folks not to need you, and so I didn't want to create that incentive. Um, and
So
uh, and it just felt like for the audience I was targeting, like the best of the best, those that are doing fractional work successfully, from top companies, that it just wasn't gonna be the right solution for them. It's not what I wanted as, if I'm building for myself, it's not what I wanted either. And so I was like, and I actually tried it too. Actually, this is interesting. I launched a couple of roles that had this like, I think I even did like it was like a 10%
yeah.
fee markup or something. And it was the first and only time I ever got feedback from my audience that they did not like something I was doing. And it was like, it actually like really upset me. And like,
Interesting.
and so like that was kind of like the nail in the coffin. I already knew I didn't want to do it, but I experimented with it anyway, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin. So I knew that that was not going to work. And so what I arrived on was this referral fee concept, which doesn't involve subcon. So my pitch to companies is like, um, we'll send you the top recommendations that we have for whatever your need is. It could be 5, could be 8, whatever. If you hire a candidate that we send you, we charge a flat referral fee. And there's no, we don't do the markups. We do like a 30-day guarantee as well, and you hire and pay these fractionals directly. So you can hire and pay them directly. That's like the pitch, and I think that tends to resonate. And it's so like I decided I wanted that, and then I figured out how to build a business model around that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes when you say your audience, are you referring to the supply side, the
I
fractional
am.
goods?
Yeah,
Okay, I love
exactly.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
It's I mean, this is what's interesting about it is in the end of the day, like the answer is whatever you want it to be, right? Like the industry is so young that we're still creating standards. And so even if that's the wrong answer, it doesn't matter because if your audience loves you and you've found a way to get companies to understand you, then my quick answer is going to be fuck it, do it.
yeah,
Right? Like whichever gets you to want to wake up and work.
yeah,
You're not venture backed. You don't have a PE firm on you yet. And so you can do what you want.
yeah.
Where I might see it,
Wh-
yeah, and this is going to be the old man on the porch answer.
yeah,
Where I might see it is there might be two things that happen. The first might be at scale, right? So
yes,
how do you manage this when there's 100 million going through the pipes, and you just need standard processes? That
yes,
might create a new environment. The second is if you go upstream to the midsize and enterprises where they never want to directly contract with the talent,
yes.
and so right, but with that said, Taylor, this is where you're first and you're early and you already are seeing retention high quality. And so
Yeah.
like don't F up what you're doing well. Yeah.
So a couple of things. 100% on the enterprise stuff, like, and our bread and butter is the early stage startups and the SMBs. And so at the moment, at least, I don't have to worry so much about that. But I have had enough conversations with those larger companies to know that my model doesn't work so well for them at the moment, and maybe it does. Maybe it does change. However, I haven't actually shared the kicker with you yet on the business model.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
Hit me with the kicker.
the kicker is this. You heard me just now refer to the supply side as my audience,
Yeah.
right? So I've built the largest audience of fractional leaders, really in the U.S., but really, beyond that, we have over 20,000 folks,
Yeah.
in the network today, and we're adding about 1,000 a month.
Mm.
And I work with sponsors that want to get in front of that audience. And if either they're selling their product or service to fractional leaders of all shapes and sizes,
Yeah.
or they're selling their product or service to a certain kind of C-suite executive like CFOs, and they think of fractional CFOs as a great channel partner for them. And so what this allows me to do is monetize. I have 2 different revenue streams, right? And I can, by monetizing the audio, like I have a newsletter, for example, right? The
Yeah.
newsletter has an ad unit. It's very standard, like media business type stuff, right? I do we do webinars and so what that allows me to do is not have to be so extractive on the talent marketplace side of the business, right? So I like if I was only monetizing the talent marketplace, I would if I would probably have to do the 20% markup because
Yeah.
which is a lot. That is a lot to take. And but like I've done the math, we've all done the math. Like that's kind of is what you need to take in order to build a business on it.
Yeah.
But the fact that I can subsidize with like about half our revenue comes from sponsorship, so it's not small, and like it allows me to subsidize the talent
Mm.
marketplace, and I think it's so freaking cool
Yeah.
because the talent marketplace becomes cheaper, significantly cheaper for companies, and it's always free for fractionals anyway. So and it's like it's all this like yeah, it just works out phenomenally well. At least right now, I'm a year and a half in, but like we'll talk again in a couple of years, we'll see. But it's like it's actually been the saving grace of the company, if I'm being honest,
Yeah.
because if I didn't discover this revenue stream, because I am bootstrapping, right? So if I didn't discover this revenue stream, um, we might be having a different, like you might have been right when we talked a year and a half ago when you were probably thinking to yourself, this guy's not going to last. Like,
Still having a
so yeah,
beer, just a different conversation, right?
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
oh, that is fascinating. Well, it does make sense because it enables you to have one singular North Star goal, which is talent quality and talent retention, while subsidizing what is probably one of the hardest parts is do you invest in having the demand side layer or can you stay investing in so I actually think, and you know this in product, right? The answer is never yes or no. It's what do you take away and
Hmm.
prioritize, right? So I think you have been able to replace what in a traditional talent platform model would be you need a strong demand side, meaning you need a strong sales team, right? And a strong marketing team. But instead, if the talent really is your customer and the North Star metric, then having the sponsors in the back end that is really interesting and then that I mean obviously incentivizes you to have high engagement, right?
Yes.
The only one that I wonder, because we also have the whole like sponsor side, is I wonder if how do you feel about network size? Like, do
Hmm.
you care if your network is big? Because that's where I could see the talent platform side. You want the most engaged, right? Or
Right.
typical model would be, well, actually, it should be a one to one, not like no demand and massive supply. But so, how do you think about network size?
But so it's a great point. And like if I had a marketplace that had a ton of supply and
Yeah,
no demand, and that's all it was,
yeah,
then it would be crickets for virtually everyone that's trying to do fractional work, right? And so this the sponsorship angle that I'm talking about is really a business model for an entire media business where
yeah.
I am creating content about fractional work. I have the newsletter. We write these playbooks. I have the blog. We do video content as well. And so the way I like to think about it is that, um, if you're doing fractional work, you can get significant benefit from being in the fractional jobs ecosystem and paying attention to what we have,
Yeah.
even if you're not getting a job through us. So like,
So
do you see how? So it's like you can still benefit, right? And so I can still have your attention, and then when we do have a job opportunity that you're a good fit for a year after you joined or 6 months after you joined, you're still there and you didn't churn after 2 weeks because we didn't have anything for you at the moment. You see?
You know what's hilarious, Taylor? Listeners, everyone close your ears right now. We actually have the same model, except your fractional is our platform solutions.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah. It's the same model. Listeners, close your effing ears. But no, that is hilarious. That's awesome, man. Well, so let's dig into the. I have two directions, and one direction could be what like scopes of work that you see working really well. You mentioned finance is the highest
Mhm.
demand and marketing slash creative is the highest supply. That's one angle. Another angle, though, I think might be more interesting for our listeners might be the challenges side. So let me throw like the biggest challenge that I see in the way of fractional is that the people that you actually want to buy you, you might be getting rid of. And so what I mean by that is if you're a CMO, why would you hire a fractional CMO? You might get replaced. And I remember I had this experience. I've actually never really told anyone this. So like when Venturella was, there was an acquihire opportunity And I was going to come in as like, eventually I was going to get acquired. Then I would come in as head of community. Now we were at like the final stages basically of the acquisition. And this was by a large banking institution actually. And the last thing was I had to meet with the CMO. Now, I could tell that meeting did not go well the second I gave my background. And what I found out from the champion of the deal when it went through was that, meaning it didn't happen, was that the CMO just fucking hated me. And it
Yeah.
was really clear because I might take her job.
Right.
Right. And I feel like Fractional has that potential, right? Where it's like, I don't. Why would I want to go hire a CMO? Like my boss is going to figure out they're better than me. That to me seems like a massive potential challenge.
Yeah.
But for you, what do you see as the biggest barriers, blockers, roadblocks right now?
So I'll address that first because it's actually interesting. I don't see that challenge. So I have seen it, but
Hmm.
I don't see it so much because most of the time we're working with founders directly, right? And the founders are hiring, let's say, a CMO because they have no marketing leadership on the team at all,
Gotcha.
and so they want a fractional CMO, and so you're kind of filling a gap as opposed to being a multiplier for an existing CMO or an existing
Gotcha.
CFO, etc.
Yeah.
Oh, there have been a couple instances though. Like I can think of one time where we were doing a a fractional chief of staff for a COO, and literally all the candidates we sent this person were arguably more qualified than the person than the COO. And I was so proud of the candidates. I was so excited, and then she ghosted me and never respond. And it took me a week to be like, oh, I know exactly why she ghosted me.
you.
So it
That
does
is
happen.
such a funny. You're over here proud as hell of how
I
good
was
they are.
so happy, yeah, because like they were incredible candidates. Like, um,
Which is only
uh,
this is only going to happen more, especially
yeah,
as we see with downsizing and people choosing fractional. Like
yeah,
it's going to be a big deal. That
yeah.
is so funny.
But so back to your question on like what are the big challenges that I'm seeing with respect to
Yeah.
hiring fractional. I think like there's a few angles that I can take. I think probably the one that sticks out to me the most is that because hiring fractional is new, let's say you're an early stage founder, you're used to building out teams of full-time employees, and you suddenly you have the need for marketing leadership on your team, and but you don't have the budget, let's say, for full-time hire, and so you're kind of open to this idea of hiring a fractional CMO. You've heard about it from a friend, you want to try it out, and then you try it, and then you're kind of faced with the reality that this fractional CMO is,
Yeah.
drum roll, fractional, meaning they're spending part of their time with you, not full time. And so it for some hirers, it's a bit it's harder. It's harder than they thought or anyone thinks to like kind of realize that you're paying this person a retainer, let's say $10,000 a month for 10 hours a week of their time and not 40 hours a week of their time. And and so like the challenge itself is figuring out how to leverage that for what it is, and not thinking of a fractional hire as something that it isn't, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
because it's new, and because folks have not that many repetitions in doing fractional hiring, sometimes that does create problems where it's like, what the hell, like I need you 40 hours. And it's like, I have other clients. Like, this was the agreement. I have other clients. Like, I can't give you 40 hours. Or I can, but like, we need to change the scope and we need to change the agreement. And I can, starting next week or starting next month. So yeah, that's one common challenge I
Oh,
see.
so interesting. Well, listen, very intentionally, Taylor. I want you listeners, I want you all to go reach out because I got a million more questions. And for you listeners, some of the questions I actually think you should reach out to Taylor about is honestly, how do you structure the contract? How do
Oh
you
yeah.
structure the incentive structure? How do you structure milestones? How do you handle re-engagement, meaning you want to always turn back to the right person? How do you handle the replicating of the org chart, meaning this fractional person is incredible? Maybe you don't ever go get a CTO. You always have a fractional CTO and then you have a team underneath them. But so there are millions of questions, Taylor, but very intentionally, I think what I want our listeners to reach out to you. And part of, let me just like summarize what I see real quick. So coming back from, so a year and a half ago, you were like, hey, I'm a product person and a software person. I want to start this thing, right? And I'm like, okay, the way you're thinking about it seems really basic and you're like 5 years behind the freelance world, but fuck it, go at it. We'll grab a beer in 6 months and, can't wait to reconnect. You iterated really, really fast because you started at a blank white piece of paper and you kind of realized that, all right, you do have to look like a staffing service on the demand side. Then on the supply side, there's still that white glove, but it's not in the same way that it's traditionally been,
Hmm.
and you kind of had to figure out what that right match looks like. And since you're bootstrapped and since you're scrappy, you were able to figure out things like it's a referral fee, not a 20% take. My friend, that when I'm in New York, that is what we are gonna like. Oh, I can't wait. We're gonna have a ping pong game to be able to like go over like which is the smartest answer on this. And I really come back to it really doesn't matter. It's whatever you want it to be, right? Like this is such a young, immature market and you're creating it. So yeah, so I think what most important question, Taylor, for our listeners, where can they find you and what do you want them to do?
Sure, absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn, of course. My name is Taylor Crane. Hopefully, I'm one of the top results. So I actually don't know for sure. You can also go to fractionaljobs.io, and you'll have plenty of options to contact me directly that way as well. Always happy to chat. If you're listening and you're interested in exploring the idea of hiring fractional talent for your company, that is what I do, obviously. So happy to help there too. And I think that's it.
I love it. Listeners, go reach out to him ASAP. Taylor, thank you for hopping on, my friend.